what I want to start with today is the importance of social selling. And I mean, it's got the name and the title, selling. So a lot of companies and individuals get this wrong. And it starts from the obvious premise that people buy from people. So how do you leverage new relationships on a channel like LinkedIn, where we know a lot of your buyers and prospects are? So LinkedIn themselves have got what they call a social selling index. And if you Google your name, LinkedIn social selling index, you'll see your own ranking. And it ranks it by sort of the strength of relationships you build and a lot of things around that. And you can maybe see where you've got room to improve. But LinkedIn themselves recognize this and have built a scoring around this for each individual on LinkedIn.
Oh, wow. And how can I improve this score? Just be more active there?
Well, a lot of ways. So one of the ways you can do it is by connecting. So you haven't got 50 connections, you've got 5,000 connections.
There's a difference, of course.
Yeah. The other is posting content, that they love it when you post content, but just as importantly is engaging with other people's content. They don't want to be a conversation where you speak and no one answers. So I think it's very important that you're engaging with people, particularly in your market, within LinkedIn themselves, and they score higher based on that.
All right.
I mean, in terms of the professional brand as well, LinkedIn have got some great stats, like 81% of buyers, they're more likely to engage with someone that's got a strong professional brand. 92% of B2B buyers engage with sales professionals that are already demonstrating domain expertise. So how do you start to do that domain expertise? So for example, and this is wasted real estate, LinkedIn have got this really big banner space in the background, and people maybe do a picture of the skyline or something. They're not making use of it. And where I see this most effective is where companies are consistent. So they're using that banner space with maybe something that's catchy, 4 or 5 words that encapsulates
and it's
their
on
brand
also.
On their own brand. But the thing to do then is to have consistency. So everyone is posting the same types of things within the company. So they're maybe saying, hey, we do this for our company, and everyone's using exactly the same format and same words. And
like we see in the slide here of the titles of people at DealHub.
Exactly.
For example.
Exactly. So DealHub's a good example. You can see all the way through the company, everyone is using the same formats, and they've also got the same background image, the same colors. So you start to see the purple. And with another company I work with,
this is a slide that shows the background picture of people's profile on LinkedIn, right?
That's right. Yes.
So just for our audience, those who only listen, which would be usually the majority in this podcast, we just want to mention once again that all episodes of our masterclasses also can be found on YouTube, and there you can see an actual presentation that Simon is now presenting to me with the concrete examples and concrete methodologies that he's gonna be talking about. So.
Thanks,
up to you.
So you see, you start to recognize the colors, the images, the branding. So it's very important that you're selling as a company, not as an individual. And that doesn't mean you're not promoting individuals within the company to represent the brand better, but it's a team effort. So you've got to all support that within the team. In terms of when you approach people, so there's a lot of testing that I've done over the years with various companies. I think overall, should you or should you not personalize a LinkedIn invitation? Overall, probably you should, rather than just clicking add, and give some context. Certainly not to be salesy, and just the most generic one would be, hey, I noticed we're in the same industry. Would love to learn from you.
Would love to connect.
Would love to learn from you and connect, and no sales message, and don't hit them straight away. But just keep adding. There's no point investing in a LinkedIn strategy if you've got 3 followers. So you've got to keep building every week. I mean, I've got up to about 28,000 followers now, but that was nurtured over time through posting consistently about similar topics to people in that crowd.
Yeah.
In terms of how to really stand out on LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn do not want to see, for obvious reasons, just company post. They don't want to see the commercial. So they would much rather that most of the content is active, engaging. So that comes from personalities, individual people. Because
the actual stories of the people that work in your company or the thing that happened in your company.
Yeah, the things that happen maybe in their personal life, even that they can turn it into a lesson. I had an example here, maybe for your viewers who are watching online. This is an example of a company that we work with, and they have a technology for surgeons, and it's a technology where they're making it automating the processes because it's very manual in the US with faxes here, and et cetera, et cetera. And instead of just saying, hey, bring everything online, they gave a real example in this case of a company that had a runner. They had 2 surgeries and they were running across busy highways with everyone's personal records, which is obviously legal anyway. But giving that is a much better example than just saying, hey, why not automate and move online? It's 2023.
Yeah.
And people want to
a story that actually demonstrates the need.
A story that demonstrates the need, that can engage people. So that LinkedIn much prefer that. So they don't want to just see the same thing time and time again. And companies tend to promote themselves and not in such an engaging way.
And then maybe I should have asked earlier, but why LinkedIn? Why is it so important to be present on LinkedIn?
Everyone's there. Everyone's there. And
if you're selling software, you have to be there.
You have to be there. You have to be there. Everyone's there. And I've worked in companies in like very non-techie spaces, and they said, no, my audience aren't there. And we've done research together, and we found them one by one by one. They have to be there for their careers. Now, are they checking in once a day or once a month? That's a different story. But what we do know is everyone is on LinkedIn. They have to be in order to build their career these days.
All right, cool.
It's a non-negotiable. The other thing is, in terms of, this is what I mentioned before about the LinkedIn social selling score and social selling index. It's one thing to keep promoting yourself, but if you want to start to establish domain expertise and people want to buy from experts, from people they trust, one of the ways to do that is to engage with other content that's already out there. Now, that could be your potential client, like a prospect's content. It could just be an industry leader, but it's commenting almost like, I call it like piggybacking on existing content. They've done the work for you, and you're adding your 2 or 3 sentences, particularly if it's like there's hashtags there and people are following and it's a niche type of trend and comment. So that's very important as well, not to just think invest in yourself, but also to
invest in your brand, in your profile, and create content. You also need to engage with other profiles in other companies.
Exactly.
All the time.
Yeah, all the time, constantly.
Right. Should I map the profiles that I want to engage with and actively decide who I want to engage with, or just let the algorithm pick for me?
I think it's, if you've got, say, 5 or 10 top prospects for the next quarter, they're bigger companies, you know it's going to be a nurturing. I would start to maybe actually target people. And LinkedIn have got the facility where they've got like the bell on the profile, so you can actually click on the bell. And if everything's working smoothly, as soon as you post, Guy, I should get notification that you've posted. So that saves me going in and searching every day to see if you posted.
Oh,
so
cool.
It does the work for you. So that's a good tip for your listeners and viewers, to click the bell on people's profiles that they want specifically engage with. And often it will be people, not only prospects that you haven't spoken to yet, but on those long sales cycles, people that you're still trying to engage, but you can't say, hey, any further thoughts? And very importantly as well, your existing clients. People think, okay, they're a client now, job done. Not at all. They need to be seeing your content constantly as well.
Yeah. All right.
So definitely engage with your contents, the content of your target audience. You want to be leading the conversation. So that could be through podcast channels, the type of thing we're doing today, for example. So you're hosting a conversation in the industry. But there's also lots of content out there, not just people posting on LinkedIn, but existing content. There could be an article on the BBC website, on CNN, on Fox News about cybersecurity, and you want to put your little spin and add your 2 cents worth to that conversation. So people who I work with often say, well, how do I keep posting content all the time? Sometimes it can be like spur of the moment. I'll see something online, not even on LinkedIn, and think, oh, that's interesting. And I'll quickly share the article or the video and just put a couple of words to get a conversation going. So it doesn't always have to be original content. A lot of the work's already done out there for you in the industry as well.
So not every piece of content that you share have to be your own original. You can also reshare other stuff, other people's stuff. All right.
And what you're trying to do then is, it comes down to this domain expertise, is, I hate the word, like the thought leadership, where you're demonstrating in your space that you understand what's going on and that you're an authority. And like we said, people want to buy.
And you have something to say about that.
You have something to say, and people can trust when you recommend a software and a solution, much more likely from a sales perspective to do that when they trust that you're an authority in that particular niche.
Got it.
Other things as well, and I call share your clients' wins. So let's say your clients signed a new partnership, or they've opened a new office. It's a nice, easy way to stay engaged with them. It could be a client, it could be a prospect, it could be someone that you want to speak to that you're not speaking to with already. Just if you're on LinkedIn, you're seeing there's always ideas of how you can engage. If you're not there, then you're not in the game, and you're almost irrelevant in terms of a sales process in a way. And one of the first things that people will often do is, when a company approaches them, it might be a cold email, it might be a phone call, they will go to the company profile on LinkedIn, and if they see the last post was 6 months ago, they think, oh, this company's dying, it's on its way out. So first impressions are important, and they'll also look at my profile as a salesperson. If I've got 10 followers and it looks like I started the job yesterday, my credibility goes down compared to if I've got X amount of followers, if I've been in the industry for a long time, if they can see that I post regularly about the industry. So that first impression in a sales process, you can control that much better than you could in the past. You don't know where they're looking you up.
Yeah.
And it comes down to discussing pain. You know, I've seen it on some of your other masterclasses. People are always talking about identifying that pain and talking about it. So this is an example.
Don't talk about what you're doing. Talk about like the problem.
Exactly. So this is a client we work with in the fashion space, and they were very much in terms of the carbon footprint. So they were talking about the unsustainability of returning things in fashion, and it suited their brand quite nicely because they were all about a one-size-fitting solution where you didn't need to return clothes. So instead of just saying, buy our solution, they're saying, how can we cut down on waste in fashion?
Yeah.
It just happens as a nice segue into their product, but that's, again, a good way to do it. And in terms of selling, you don't want to always be sell. It's part of it subliminal, it's subtle. The best way to do it is to undersell. So sell by underselling. And if you are using LinkedIn in the right way, there's plenty of channels to express that.
Yes.
In terms of LinkedIn itself, we talked briefly about the company page versus the individual page. So the way I try and explain this often is think of the company page as the BBC, the CNN. It's the broadcast page. So we've just announced a new partnership. We've opened a new office. We've recruited a new VP product. We've signed this client, et cetera, et cetera. So that's about progress in your journey. So that should be quite different from the individual posting. You can't just be posting as an individual, always saying, hey, we're signing up a new client. So it comes back to telling the story.
You can't just send out press releases. You need to tell like your personal stories.
So exactly. So the media, everyone's a media company these days. So your company profile is your media page, and what you're doing on your profile page is you're hosting a chat show. Think of it as like the Oprah Winfrey show. So something where you're hosting a conversation in your industry. And as I said, there's so many ways to do that. But if you already think of LinkedIn in those two ways, much easier to pull that off successfully.
Yeah, I agree.
Another idea and tip for your followers on this series, on this masterclass is, and we did this by ourselves in our last company, is create groups in your industry. Now, there might be some existing ones. Think of it as, you might have a real estate professionals group there already. If there isn't one and you're in Nashville and that's your technology, your company, etc., set up Nashville real estate professionals, start to add content, start to invite people. Then again, that's another great way to establish expertise, trust, domain relevance as well. Set up your own group. Something that most people don't think of. Very easy to do. You go into LinkedIn, you can do it in 30 seconds. And that is the ultimate hosting a conversation when you're controlling the streams
community,
as well.
Yes.
You're hosting a community. Think of what credibility that gives you. So just a quick recap before we move on to the next section. I always like to give a quick recap. So corporate announcements is the BBC versus the individual account, which is the shorter post, more engaging, and the stories. Always think, and I do this myself when I talk about sales, I could just in a dry way say, hey, this is how you sell, or you give a personal example, a story, something relatable. Or what I often do is I give a sports example. It's just one of my areas that I really like. So I try and think of a sports story and tie it back to a sales learning from that.
Yeah.
There are things you can do as a company to, as I said before, sell as a team. So if you've got a Slack channel, WhatsApp group, etc., you can be promoting that it doesn't just disappear in the feed.
Yeah, your internal posts.
Exactly. So exactly that. You promote your internal post. LinkedIn want to see what happens in that first hour. If you post something, Guy, and no one responds to it, they think, okay, that wasn't a good post. It's not up to his usual standard. We'll bury that one quite nicely, and no one will ever see it again. If there's 20 comments and 30 likes and some engagement and people scrolling down, they'll say, wow, this is an interesting post. And you'll see that you can post almost the same thing and you could get 2,000 views or 20,000 views. And you look at the content and something got picked up early and something didn't. So you can control that as a company and sell together as a team.
Yeah.
Share those news articles with your commentary, join or create those industry groups, and always be growing your network. So there are various products that your listeners might be aware of, things like Duck Soup, Expandy, Walaxy.
You can brief them on your ICP, and then they suggest you new people to connect with?
Yeah, and they can also connect on your behalf as well. So they can start to be growing your network for you, but in a way that respects the LinkedIn algorithm and the restrictions, etc. So it does it in the background, and you go on holiday and you've got another 30 followers.
Yeah, you don't need to be afraid to be blocked.
Yeah. And also just increase, if you've got a corporate page, I see quite often a corporate page, the first thing I do when someone wants to work with me, I'll look at their corporate page. Some of them have got like 100 followers and they've been going for 2 years. Like you could do that in a month. So you need to be telling the story, but making sure you've got an audience to tell that story to. So that wraps up the first section on what I would call social selling, which is a key area.